This conference will now be recorded.
Elect Sam as the chair. And Sam, I know, has volunteered to do that. So if there's any second of that, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Enthusiastically, Sam.
Thank you. All in favor? Your vote is. All right, and the other officer is the co-chair, and I'll serve on the interim for now as the co-chair if everybody's in agreement with that. And then what we're trying to do is get somebody to serve as a co-chair. And Sam has some ideas, and he's already reached out to somebody. And then we'll come to the next meeting for that. However, if we can do it informally, under the bylaws, I think we can do that by names, consent and email. That might be good for the next meeting. Arrange that. I think there's a mechanism for that. And with that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Sam.
Wow.
Yeah, just on that note, I don't have studied the bylaws as far as number of members, but I'm just thinking maybe in the near future, we throw around a couple of names or ideas of other people that may want to be a part of this committee. From a just experience level and kind of now that we've really figured out where we want to go and kind of what we're going to be, I have a couple of ideas of people that may bring some helpful experience to that. So.
Thanks. To add to that, the council recently we discussed adding maybe even if you're full, you can add two. It has to go through council, but there's a couple of ways we talked about adding members to this.
Okay, great. So, Tori, we could just
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, Deb's calling my phone.
Oh, she's calling your phone.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Hopefully she'll ignore my email to her.
Welcome, Deb.
Yeah, just go ahead, please.
Okay.
I know people want to get in there and get out.
All right.
You probably needed me for the quorum, right?
No, we have a quorum, but we're glad you're here, Deb. Thanks for joining.
No problem.
So Deb, I'm not sure if my voice carries over there, but we were just giving a recap. First, please congratulate Sam. He's the new chair of the LDC.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna vote against him.
Where were you 10 minutes ago?
Oh, you did that so that I could do it, huh? We're lucky to have you. That's great.
So we're giving a recap of the meeting, which first, all accounts, I think, were very good. We had a good rapport with the council. They asked a lot of questions. We tried to, try to answer them as best we could, but also get feedback from the council to really get an understanding of what their expectations were with the LDC. I was just about to say a couple of takeaways that I had from the meeting, and one was that One was that the council was in favor of us working with the EDAB on this market analysis if we wanted to go in that direction. They sort of saw us having a positive role in that. And then two, we kind of talked a lot about maybe the initial phase of the LDC being focused on what appears to be our strengths, which is real estate related. We may be able to do other things, and obviously ideas can come through the EDAB and through the economic development staff and council or us. But as an initial matter, to kind of focus on real estate would be a good thing. And in that regard, we talked about everything from housing, which was a real priority of the council, to some of the other opportunities for real estate, like mixed use, or taking advantage of some inventory of potential available property in Yarmouth. And related to that second takeaway that I think Megan was going to is this notion of Sligo Road. And I tell me if I'm wrong, but I felt like we were being given the initiative to say, look, if you guys want to come up with a proposal for Sligo Road, by all means, come back to the town council and work with the staff to come up with a proposal, something about how you might be able to use that property for mixed use or facilitate the town's efforts to develop that property, including for housing. And
Yeah. I think that there's, yes, I think that affordable housing would be an essential component. What the council would like to see as a proposal, assuming that it's setting up. And there's also been talk around town of sports fields, which could or could not be a part of that. That would be another thing to strongly consider looking at. With the environmental stuff, we're not sure if that would work.
Yeah. And I honestly did think the sports field being a part of that, so that's, yes. We talked a little bit about process, how things come to us, and how we might be able to evaluate that. And I think that we're still working on exactly how that would be. It felt like we were on the same page. And I just feel like going forward, we've got a little more direction about how we think.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was a good meeting, and I think we took the council through a lot of different scenarios where we could play a role, which I'm not sure they would done before, so.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, but I think you would have thought it was a productive meeting. And Tori did a really nice job of, keeping us on track, and guiding us into places where I know we have some initiatives. And we can talk about today.
I think it's really important in that process. I've talked to a couple of councils since then, just informally. And some of them don't fully really still understand what the tool is. And so I think that to the extent we keep reminding them when there's opportunities, and to the extent we can lay out process and principles, because there just isn't an understanding about some of the basic principles of the community with all the change and additions to the council. We're going to have a new slot too, so I just think that wherever we can reinforce that. Did we document something back to them with some next steps? Or is that what this meeting's about?
No, we didn't document next steps with them. We had a PowerPoint presentation that they have.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And I think that, to that second point that I was making, I think that it was really kind of back to us to do something. Like, yes, come back with sort of more direction on our own process. I think we get a pretty good sense of where things would come. Ideas would come through the department, staff, and then, or EDAB, and we make decisions around that, and we have to formulate something, but they're going to be driven a lot by the individual particular project. What kind of due diligence, what kind of role do we have? And I don't know, I guess I had a different takeaway. Maybe I was too optimistic, but I thought that they really were following what role we could play and how it could be productive and how we could work together on it. And then to that point, it felt like if we come up with something, like it's almost like, give us a proposal, give us an idea, let's see what you can do, and let's see how it goes. We know you're there. We know that if some property came available to you, you are a tool to us. But if you guys have some ideas, put them on the table.
Yeah, I think that Jim, I agree with that was still happening. I don't know who you're speaking to, Deb, but I think we all understand what the LBC is now. I mean, it was helpful, that meeting was helpful, I think, for people to really solidify their ideas, but I think there's too much confusion about what the role of the LBC could be. It's, somewhat flexible, of course, but it could be.
I don't think it's ever really going to become clear until we do some.
Yeah. Right, even to ourselves.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. But I think 3 years from now, everybody's going to have a much better understanding.
Yeah, once you have real projects. Can I ask a question though? I can hear some of the conversation, but just one thing that I would just ask us, and Jim, or maybe it was Ted and Tori and me, when the restaurant, when
Muddy Rudder.
Muddy Rudder went on the market, if we had some of these ideas, like that would have been a great place, and I think the guy's still thinking about this, but we said, oh my God, can you imagine if we were farther along with our market analysis and agriculture, if we could have had it like be a co-op store and everything. I mean, that's why the sooner we can come up with some ideas too, because that would have been something that maybe we could have bought. I mean, maybe it wasn't the right building. I know it needs a lot of work, but you know what? I'm just using that as an example. I'd like us to think of, I think it's great to take the slide open, but I want us to also think about what are some things we want to develop for the community, and that would come out of the market analysis, I know. So I'm just putting that up as a kind of the range of things we could be thinking about to facilitate the growth of those industries.
I kind of see too with the market analysis. Thanks, Ann. We talked about this sort of land inventory being either part of the market analysis or an addendum to the market analysis. And I think that it would be nice to have that list. And we talked about this with the council, like a list of high priority properties that are privately owned, and then a list of obviously town-owned properties that we think could be at a higher or better use. So I think that's going to help organize that quite a bit.
That's great. Yep.
I just have a question, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there. Sam, you mentioned easements, and I'm not sure if you could just elaborate on what they were asking. Obviously, there's other bodies that hold easements in the state of Maine. Maine Historic Preservation Commission holds preservation easements. Maine Preservation holds building and land preservation agreements, Maine Farmland Trust. I mean, there's so many. So I'm just kind of like, where was that?
Yeah, that was more around conservation easements and using that as a tool, I think, in this specific conversation to keep trails throughout town that are currently in touch private property, to allow those to stay in perpetuity. If I remember certainly correctly, specifically around the ability for kids to be able to continue to bike to school. Throughout town.
We also mentioned, I know that some of what we talked about, both for housing and for conservation, was driven by town council goals, one of which is the housing goal, which you mentioned, the 430 houses. Another comes from the comprehensive plan, which is 30% of the town as open space.
Mhm.
So I think at that meeting, I could be thinking of a different meeting, but I think it was that meeting, we also talked about an LDC role in that.
Yeah.
Is that right, Florida?
I think so, yeah.
I think I commented on that pretty specifically, and I've done it before.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't see, it's like when people keep raising this as a charitable organization, I don't see a legal path where the LDC is the right path to create a conservation.
Mhm.
You go through the conservation easement statute, and it just doesn't lend itself to this, and they're perfectly capable, really good organizations.
Exactly, it's whole easements.
That know how to do it, and they're not. But I did think that one of the councilors, when we talked about that, said, well, are there other ways you might be useful in that? And I could see, for example, if the town had an acre of property, and they said, we want you to develop that, but we want to make sure you develop it in such a way that there's a bike path out in the back.
Yeah.
And it's easier if you can help facilitate that. Use it as an
Absolutely.
example.
I totally agree.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And I think some of the conversation with too was framed around the different funding pots that we have too. So we have a land acquisition fund, and that is specific to conservation. And then we have an affordable housing reserve specific to affordable housing, and then the LDC is capitalized. And so I think part of the thinking there was that we have these different pots that, you know, obviously the council can authorize money to go out of, but does the LDC have a role in some of those things where, you know, there's some things for sale? Could the LDC be an entity to say, oh, well, that's been identified in the comp plan or the land analysis or whatever as a great conservation property, you know, we can use the land acquisition fund to purchase it quickly. So I think that was part of that
And then
too.
flip.
And then put the easement over to Royal River or somebody else. Yeah.
And fine.
Yep.
Generally covers that meeting. Takeaways from that. The major takeaway being the ball is in our court, and come up with some action items. We obviously talked about Sligo Road property and slide into that conversation, talked about that at length. And obviously, two of the big things were affordable housing and sports fields. And I see our role, our role, I should say, in that as getting better understanding. I think dusting off. I know we did some work with Teal.
Mhm.
They did some diagram.
Yep.
30,000. Dusting those off and starting to come up with some ideas on how to move forward on that.
We have I think of the name of it in terms of fly catcher
Yeah.
analysis.
Flycatcher,
Is that
yes,
right?
yep,
So
yeah.
It's
That
also,
would be
and that
one
would be
one
something.
delineation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Study.
They just updated that,
So
yeah.
in those areas, that would be
Yep.
great.
Um,
So some concerning information.
There's a lot of colors on that
Yes.
map. It's a little concerning. Yeah, I'd be happy to put together a pack, like a Sligo Road packet for everybody. for the next meeting. And another thing that maybe I can do before the next meeting too is chat with the town engineer, because he did mention some concern around the size of the sewer main that goes out to Sligo. And so that may have some limitations on how densely it can be developed. So there's that as well. Yeah.
That would be great. I think if you could pull that packet together and circulate that well ahead of our next meeting, so we can all get familiar with that.
Yep.
And then maybe come to that meeting with more ideas on how we move that all forward. As far as presenting something to the council, does anyone have any ideas or thoughts on, are we going to them with, hey, this is our plan and it's ready to go, or are we more presenting, this is the idea, we've kind of looked at this, maybe go through some very high level due diligence steps on what could work and what might not work, and it's a perfect example with the sewer. But maybe just think through some of those before our next meeting and come up with maybe some action items from there. But I think longer, be thinking about what is it that we are going to have to, present to the council as far as the analysis goes. Is that a report? What is that? I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously making recommendations to the council on these properties is a goal of the LDC. So trying to formalize what that process looks like, I think, and this is a good test case for that. Yeah.
Yes. What is the dilemma?
It sounds like we've got some good information already to start with. Looking at that, inform our decision whether to recommend taking it to the next step.
Yeah, I feel like we need to really see as much information that exists, and the council had said, make sure it's in line with the climate plan and the comp plan, and let's take a comprehensive look at it. And then I don't know how you fill in that next piece of okay, we have an idea and a concept, and this is how, and then we put it in front of the council, or we ask staff. I don't know how you find out what the it is.
Right.
Well, if there isn't it, because we haven't looked at it yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your business.
Yeah. Figure out.
No, but I mean, that's what you do, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I would see that as, going through that exercise, we're all getting familiar with that site, and then figuring out what questions we need answers to get more information, before we come up with any sort of.
Yeah, and I think also maybe being willing to use some of the LDC funds to go out and do some of that due diligence and show the council that you're committed to that. And I think that would be good too.
Great. And as far as action items goes, let's just get that packet out before the next meeting and just ask everybody to do a little homework before the next meeting. And plan a good chunk of our time in the next meeting to go through that site and start asking questions on what more information we need to be able to make a recommendation. I may create a shared drive of sorts so
That's
that
fine.
you guys can, it'll probably be the same. It'll be a Teams folder, and I think everybody can access that. We had issues with our grant program last time, but I think we figured it out, so I'll do that. Great.
Kind of a weird thing, but if it's Teams, I use it all the time for work. I just want to make sure you're sending it to my work email.
To work. Okay.
ABAL@MDF, which I know you have in here.
Great.
Thank you. Then I won't cause any trouble.
Okay. I was able to figure it out so that we could use Gmails and whatever else last time, so should be good.
I don't think we need to spend too much more time on that tonight without that information. So as far as the market analysis and action plan, RFP goes, Corey, would you just give us a background on what the status is there and how we can help in that process? And
Sure.
we included draft and that in our packet.
Yeah. So as you know, our market analysis and action plan was done in 2016. And so EDAB has allocated funding through TIF this coming fiscal year to revise that and update it. So we did a quick little exercise with EDAB and went through the action plan matrix and, you know, saw what was done already, what still needed to be done, what's an ongoing thing, and drafted this RFP. And knowing that EDAB and LDC are both going to be a huge part of this, I wanted everybody to have a chance to, you know, look it over. If you felt like anything was missing from the RFP, you can let me know. But I'm bringing this back to EDAB next week in hopes that we can sort of get a green light to move forward and actually launch the RFP. It's not very different from the last RFP that we sent out. I didn't change a whole lot, but
Did you feel like that, what you got based on that RFP was what you needed?
yeah, I mean, I think the last market analysis was pretty well done, and I think EDAB feels that way too. But that said, I mean, once we get the proposals back, I'd probably ask that some representatives from EDAB and some from LDC are on like the scoring team for choosing our consultant so that we make sure that we have what we want.
And our previous consultant was no longer in business, so.
Correct.
It would be somebody different.
Can you remind me who it was? I forgot.
Probably just
Planning decisions.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So we have $60,000 to do it. And as of right now, the land inventory is not included in this RFP. I felt like that was kind of a separate project. So I did leave that out. But as we go through this, I think we can revisit that.
How would you go about doing that piece? Is it,
Land inventory?
We could do it on our own.
Yeah.
Or we could, you know, if we like the person that we work with, we could sort of create like, yeah, we could add it on. So
Aaron's talking about doing that right now.
no,
Deb's trying to say something.
One other, sorry.
No, go.
One other suggestion, Tori, with the land thing, one of the ways that we could do that is just to put it as an optional, and see how they respond.
that's
I
interesting.
mean, that's a nice way, then it's not committing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on things like that when
Me
it's an
too.
option.
That's a good
And
idea.
It saves us some time.
I
It's a
agree.
good
Yeah.
way- It's a good way for us to vet.
And it may make one candidate a little more competitive because they're like, I can do this and the land thing.
Absolutely, that's why
That's
I
not a
like
bad
that
idea.
model.
It's a good
And it's
idea.
full disclosure.
Yep.
You know, it's transparent.
That makes sense. And so if I'm to write that in, we're looking for a pretty high level analysis, looking at our comprehensive plan, but we would also like to pluck parcels out that are of high importance for development and or affordable housing and conservation, or are we just looking at, you know, development at this point?
Why not put all those things?
Can't it
Why
say it?
should we limit it?
Shouldn't, I mean, I didn't read the RFP, I'm not gonna lie.
That's okay.
Doesn't it have to be in line? What we're asking them is to be in line with the comp plan, climate plan, housing
Absolutely.
priorities, or whatever that form of it, and so they have to do that.
Yeah, it's already kind of baked in.
And
That's,
economic development activity,
I mean,
yes, right.
we may have to state it in
Yeah.
here, like these resources must be considered.
Yeah.
I believe that they're going to see the comp plan, that was the top to housing and sustainable climate action.
Yep.
In different ways are the top two recommendations of the comp plan. So they're there.
Right, but we can assume that the agriculture is gonna come up high. So there may be something that they say, oh, that would be something that you, if you had a something that could be a shared use. I'm not sure what it would look like, but that's economic development. That's accommodated.
Mhm.
I think you're right. We've already said it's in the comp plan.
Are we asking just to inventory available land or to make recommendations on how that land should be used?
Oh, good one.
I mean, I don't see how you can do one without the other.
Mhm.
Some sort of ranking thing. Yeah,
Not necessarily ranking, but,
Yeah.
you know, if we're,
that's right.
I just don't know how we bolt the
I-
land inventory
I know.
into this.
And it's kind of a careful dance too, because it's really hard to create a map and highlight somebody's private property and say, this would be really great for this. So we have to be careful.
Oh, I thought it was inventory municipal owned land.
Existing owners, it should be specifically to.
Me- Public.
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
thought we were talking about. I didn't-
Okay,
We can try,
do that on our own.
yes.
Got it.
And I thought.
I think that makes way more sense.
I thought we already inventoried.
We kind of have that already. Yeah.
We had somebody come in and that's how we talked about Sligo Road and we talked about.
UTL did the 4 parcels
Oh, right. That's
Yeah.
right.
for affordable housing.
And
West
there,
Main Street.
are there other parcels though that the municipality owns?
There are not, yes, there are some, but there aren't tons of other municipal properties or suitable. I know more about the housing. There are suitable housing in terms of being right downtown, big and the right size and all of that. But there might be a few others that.
Yeah, I mean, for affordable housing, they were looking obviously at all the criteria for the grants, bus lines and all of that good stuff. But
For conservation.
for conservation, there's a lot. There's also a parcel that's zoned on the railroad crossings, that's zoned industrial, that the town owns some of. So there's, yeah, so there's that property, which coincidentally someone emailed me about today because the St. Lawrence and Atlantic,
Oh, the trail bill.
Yes.
for that.
yeah, so somebody's doing a study on that, and wants to talk about what the town sees for that parcel. Well, it's a good LDC question. I don't know.
Huge economic development opportunity.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
They probably know this because they just that. The zoning for a particular parcel, if it fits the criteria for say housing or for conservation that is not particularly zoned that way right at this moment, the zoning can be changed for something like housing.
Mhm.
For a few other spots.
Yes.
So that shouldn't be hold them back from recommending that they just.
Yeah,
Right.
I almost take the approach of a broad brush.
Yep.
Show us properties that are developable, and then part of our job, honestly, is suitable for housing or suitable for mixed use.
Right.
I'd rather have a whole list that we can work through and kind of decide, okay, we won't make sense here based on specific parameters, also obviously in line with the comp plan and education plan.
Okay. So 30,000 feet. And
I think it'd be helpful at least
Yeah.
just to get a list, and maybe that's something. I'd have to go and play with the GIS. I've never toggled based on owner, but I wonder if within the GIS you could pull up and identify all the town-owned land on the GIS map.
if that layer doesn't exist here, we can create it
Yeah.
pretty easily.
Most
That'd
definitely.
I bet Aaron.
It'd be a great exercise as well, and it's just easy to visualize for everyone.
I think a lot of work's been done on housing, diminishing it, but I think this is an economic development study.
Mm.
And I know the two are so interrelated.
Mhm.
I agree.
I think we need to focus on what kinds of things make sense for people.
Okay.
Because we're never gonna have an industrial park, because we don't have the land for it. So what are the kinds of things that,
Mm-hmm.
what are the kinds of things that we have that we can build on, and what are the kind of things that a town like Yarmouth can.
Well, I mean, that's what I was thinking when you said that they called about that site today and it was zoned, did you say it was industrial?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, small scale manufacturing, like what is right size?
Right.
And it is economic development beyond housing, I totally agree.
Yeah. Okay. So a broad brush. We're going to look at a high level, town-owned properties. That sounds good. As an option on the RFP. Cool.
I mean, the other thing that occurs to me in this type of study, which you may have reflected, and apologies for not having read it, is thinking about change of ownership of a property, right? So what are the economic development opportunities that we know from trends or, again, this market analysis are things that are opportunities that we don't want to miss or that Yarmouth could consider, so that if a property is for sale and there could be a change of use, we can encourage, or it can be known that, I mean, there are all sorts of possibilities. You could incentivize development by using a tip or us. I mean, in some way, if we were like, this should become a hub, I have no idea what, to outdoor recreation, because there's going to be a trail and it's a huge driver going to Auburn and Portland. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not that, but I'm just saying there might be opportunities also with change of property, even though this is related to municipal owned property. I guess I want information that speaks broadly about the market and the trends and the opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I only did it one past 2 years, but
It's better than me.
But I got the sense that that's kind of what you're going for.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we're doing. That is.
Yes.
Thank you.
It is, yeah, without
I've read
specifically.
it a dozen times, but I want to go back to Ann's point. That was my thing about the example we use about the old depot that became a bank.
Right.
That's the story about the
Yep.
ruddy,
Yeah.
all of those, that we have ideas, and I would like them to be thinking about it. And if something happens that we can negotiate something at the power plant, we don't necessarily designate it, but those kinds of uses should be, that is what we expect to come out of the market study, that these
Right.
are the niches that are the growing trends of opportunities that match what we're doing in this community.
Exactly.
And what's going on in the state. Absolutely, that was the intention, and that's how we designed the last one, and that's what this one is.
Super, and I'm sorry if I.
No,
No, it's good.
I think it's all exactly right.
And we did this, like we wallowed in it, so you don't have to, that was the thing that really defined the work that we've done over these last 7 years.
The
And that's why we wanted you all involved, because of how important this is as partners. So you're on the right thing. You're absolutely saying all the right things.
What I don't recall is whether we have in this study, and maybe you guys, you have, or somebody remembers, like, does this study, do they look at what state programs are out there for funding? Like, yes, this is great for Yarmouth, and by the way, there are these 10 options for a developer if you were to take it down and do X, Y, and Z to take advantage of that. Is that like mirroring what's going on in the state?
Yep.
Funding.
That's
They
good.
did identify opportunities in the last one. I mean, not just drill down for the whole package, but that there were things going on in the state that we could leverage. I don't remember exactly which one, but there was a general discussion about that. We should go back and read it for that. That's probably good. I mean, of course, with funding in such flux, who knows what it's going to be.
Right, no, exactly. But it just seems like the
spend too
perfect,
much time on that. It's probably whatever they write is going to be gone.
but it does seem like the perfect sort of mirroring of town function in helping develop. Is if you really tie those things together. And
I
so,
can't believe that a consultant would bid on this and not be connecting it to the state economic plan. Honestly, like, that's our job.
Yeah, but I think I like calling out funding opportunities and programs for that to be something that they explicitly identify in the plan. So I would add that in.
I think one of the things that I know that we spent a lot of time first study was just our waterfront access. And
yeah,
since then, we've learned that I think most people in town don't realize is that there are literally millions of dollars worth of oysters growing off the Yarmouth shore. And is there a way to add on to that industry? And, one of the growers is looking to build a processing plant. Is that the kind of thing that makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, my organization is doing, it's called Maine. It's the Seafood Economic Accelerator, and it is an economic study of the seafood economy and aquaculture. And so there's state work happening as well in
Mhm.
that space.
It's great. We're going to be a member soon of,
I think you already
I think we already are.
are.
I'm excited about that.
That's a whole nother thing.
Mhm. All right. So yeah, I like calling out specific funding opportunities and programs that we can tap into if we're not already. So I'll add that in.
This may be a silly question, but do we have to put what our budget is in these RFPs for that?
We don't have to. We had this conversation at EDAB too, because sometimes it makes sense to do that so that they're not all over the board. And sometimes maybe it doesn't. Maybe we want to just see what comes back. So it's a
Yeah, I've never been
preference.
part of the facilitation of this, but to me, I mean, just what I do every day, that feels like we're just negotiating against ourselves, but.
Yep.
Having been on the other side and responding to RFPs is, you're just flying blind if you
Yep.
don't have an idea what the budget is. And it's crazy, you're just wasting your time.
And you can put do not exceed.
Right.
I mean, and it's,
Or a range.
Yeah, I think even if it is do not exceed, what I typically see is like if we have a 60K budget, it's
They're
all
gonna
at
be at 60K.
59.9, and so
but again,
That
like,
was more
what's
of a
gonna make them more competitive?
Curiosity.
yeah,
I don't know.
what can they offer us for 60K? I guess is really what we're
Right.
looking at. So yeah, great. Anything else on the RFP?
So the timeline of that is you meeting with EDAB next week, you said, and trying to get that out.
Mm-hmm.
sometime early.
Yeah, I'd like EDAB to hear recommendations from LDC, so I'll share those. And yeah, try to get it out probably in the month of June.
What's the expectation for time? Getting those back and then picking.
Yeah, typically they circulate for about a month. And then we'll probably take about a month to score, go through a voting process, all of that. So, I mean, we're looking at August, probably.
August for a decision, and then it's a
And then contracts and
process.
like probably a month to sort of meet with EDAB, get onboarded, and have a kickoff meeting. So really diving in probably September when we think about it.
So EDAB is the committee that's sort of running this contract, right? With you, obviously, with staff. Not,
Well, we invited you guys, we want you involved.
Yes.
We have the lead, it's one of our initiatives, but this is a team effort.
Yeah, and so I've put in here that I want this consultant to work with both groups.
okay,
And whether that's at joint meetings or not, we can figure that out. But yeah, I'd like them to work with both.
makes sense.
Mhm. Great.
Any new business? Motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Do you need people to sign up or volunteer to work on reviewing the RFP and doing the interviews, or was that something you were supposed or not yet?
We can do that at the next meeting,
Okay.
I think.
I was gonna
Oh.
say,
Actually, next meeting dates would be a good thing.
oh, yeah.
And I think,
Do you-
based on your comment earlier, I really think you should be on the way you said. You know, the decision making, you said that they wouldn't be worth their weight in gold if they didn't have this kind of in there. So I was like, okay, that's somebody who's gonna be looking out for that. So, seriously.
That's fine. I review proposals and write RFPs a lot.
Right.
That's
I can be that person
great.
or a person.
Do we want
Next
to
meeting.
go back to meeting first week of the month, or we're a little off schedule? I know, Sam, you have a lot going on.
Yeah.
First of June is definitely gonna be out for me.
Yep.
But first week of holiday.
Yeah. Then, yeah, that's also EDAB is probably skipping that week.
I'd be fine with mid to late
mid to late July. Okay. And that will, and I may, I may ask for a cohort of folks to score proposals for that, and maybe we don't need to meet formally. Cool. All right, that sounds good. Great. Thanks, Ann. Thanks for passing the phone back and forth.
Yeah, I was trying to
And
keep the
thanks, Deb.
microphone so she could hear.
Okay, gang.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Deb. Sorry
to
for
miss you
the.
in person. Bye-bye. I'll catch up with you.
Okay.
Later on. Okay, bye-bye. Be safe, everyone.
One of the people who likes to record our meetings, I forget which name it was, sent us an email that I was on saying that there's some downloads for the owl, that they just looked at their owl and they put it over here,
Yes.
and it's made it a lot better. So I don't know if that would help. Our owls also.
I wonder. Yeah. So I did.